I've created a course called Developing Robust Discussions, and I'll give you a little bit of background on discussions and why they're so important, and then I'll show you how to create one. Okay, so this is just a course I've created, and I'm happy to give you the code if you want to join it so that you can have access to this material and look at it later if you'd like. What I'll do is I'll put that access code. I'm going to copy that. Well, maybe. I'll also put the access code in the messages section. And the way you can access this is, I'll show you. You go into your Schoology, and then you would go to Courses, and then My Courses over on the right-hand corner. And you can join a course. And all you need to do is put in that access code and click on Join, and that will connect you to the material that I'm about to present today. Okay. And the reason why I'm giving you that is because some of the information, when I show it to you, you'll say, wow, that's a lot of information to present at one time. It's kind of like a PowerPoint slide that has a little too much information. But what I was just going to do is summarize some of the information. So I just want to make sure everybody can see my screen. Okay, good. Thank you. And I want to talk a little bit about the benefits of discussions. I teach at ASU, and I teach a bunch of different types of courses. I teach ed tech courses, also communications courses, and most recently sustainability, and those are my favorite classes. And I always try to incorporate some discussion boards in there because I think they're a great way to, number one, build community in your classroom, but they're also a great way for students to take the information that they've learned and kind of put it into use and put it into practice. So apply what they've learned to like a real life situation. And I'll give you some ideas on what you can do for discussion boards in here. But discussion boards are also great because they teach students 21st century skills. You know, students are great at texting and doing that whole thing with their on their phones, but a lot of times they don't really know how to navigate on their computer. So this gives them one more tool that they can learn how to do before they even get to college. And it really does allow them to think deeply about the content and to participate and kind of interact with their classmates in a different way than they normally would. And they can share resources, share ideas. And it's also a great way for students who may not be the kind that would raise their hand in class, but they feel much more comfortable responding in a digital environment where they don't have people looking at them, so they can actually expand upon their thoughts and put them into writing here. And it really does help to build higher order thinking skills by requiring them to support their statements with facts. Like we want them to be supporting with sources from either the internet or from books and that kind of thing. So that really is. Those are some of the benefits of online discussions, and we're going to jump right in. And I'm going to show you some of the purposes for online discussion. Obviously, we want them to be able to demonstrate knowledge of key concepts. It's also great for community building. In my class, I usually use a platform called Flipgrid where students can respond to each other via video format, so they're able to see each other. And that's the first activity that I do so that students like from all over the country can see each other and, you know, put a face with a name. So it is a great way to build like a classroom community. The next purpose that is reflective inquiry, and we want students to be reflecting on their learning experiences, and a discussion board is a great way to do that. And it can simply be, you could state 3 things that you learned from the activity and how it has some like personal value to them, or offers them an opportunity to connect learning from one thing that they already knew to something altogether new. It can also be a great way to get people to work together. And I'm going to show you a couple activities a little bit later about how you can build consensus using different types of activities. Sometimes you can give them a product that they have to market. You can give them a simulation where there's an issue and they have to solve it together. So it really can help to build consensus and unity within your classroom. And it's a great way to build critical thinking, because what you're doing is depending upon the types of activities that you're giving them in there, you can give them higher order questioning and activities like simulations where they have to develop a solution to a problem. And that's a great way for them to apply what they've learned to a real world situation. And then finally, it's great for student leadership because it allows students that may not participate in the normal classroom to actually have a role in the digital classroom. And it's really important that students are researching and supporting their viewpoint and opinions with facts. And it's a great way for students to, like, especially if you assign certain roles to them, where they can assume that role and become an expert. And also you can identify one person or a series of people that could summarize the most salient points of a discussion board. So you're giving them some leadership roles in there. I'm just going to stop for a second, just check in, make sure everyone's okay. I don't want to give you too much background because that gets boring. So we'll jump right into the meat of discussion boards. Okay, sounds good. We'll just keep moving forward. Sorry, my computer's moving really slow. Here's an article. I'll just open it for a second. And if you guys want to join this course, this is a great article that I share with everyone. I teach a discussion board class through Tempe Union, and it's a little more involved than what I'm going to talk about today. But this is a great article on teaching critical thinking through online discussions. And I'll also put this link in the resource section in here, just in case you want to take a look at that. All right, and I'm just going to jump back in, but this is a great article. It tells you, it provides some digital tools that you could consider using to help build critical thinking, but it also gives you some insights like asking the right kinds of questions and how you can maintain a focused discussion with your students. And there's some ideas for Socratic questioning prompts. So it is a great article. If you have a little bit of time, I would encourage you to go ahead and read that. I think you'll get some great ideas for your own classroom. Okay, the next section is discussion prompts. There's a lot of different types of discussion prompts that you can use when you're developing a discussion board. And I've shared a couple of them with you right here. You can ask exploratory type questions that kind of probe facts and basic knowledge and would make them have to do some research in order to answer the questions that you're providing. Challenge questions are great. They make students interpret and draw conclusions. Relational type questions ask for comparisons of themes and ideas or issues. So if you had a situation where maybe if you were teaching English and you were comparing themes of two books, relational questions are a great way to get students in the mode of doing a more involved comparison of maybe a theme that was explored in the texts that were similar. Action type questions, you're calling for a conclusion or an action. Those are good, and I'm going to give you some examples of these too. Some cause and effects questions where they're having to identify causal relationships between ideas or actions or some type of phenomenon. Extension questions would take the discussion a little bit further. So maybe you gave one prompt And you got some really good replies from students, but you want to take it one step further by asking maybe another involved open-ended prompt that would lead them to have to do a little more research on whatever the initial topic was. I love hypothetical questions. Those are really great. Those are like simulation questions where you might pose a scenario and change that scenario and ask them what they would happen as a result of that change. Students really like those types of questions. Priority questions where they have to prioritize certain things. Maybe you give them a list of really significant issues, maybe in government right now, or maybe in health right now, or in healthcare, and they have to identify the most important issues and write about them in a post. And summary questions are great questions because they help students to synthesize information. So if you've been working on a unit, a summary question might be a great way for them to synthesize and apply the information that you've given in a unit. Okay, I have a more involved page that I can share with you that gives you specific examples on each one of these if you're interested. Okay, I'm just going to jump into the next section. Sorry, and these are some examples that you can use in your classroom. Depending upon your discipline, you can pick and choose which ones you think might be good for you. Debate is always a great one, and what happens in a debate is you might assign certain students one side of a debate and other students the other side of the debate, and have a moderator that's a student also. They research their topic, they post their viewpoint, and then they wait for a response from a peer, and then there has to be a rebuttal. And you can see that that could create some really robust discussion within a classroom. And it's really cool when you pick like a controversial topic, and because students really seem to get into those. And it's a great way to, like I said, get really great information where students have to cite their sources and also really support their viewpoint. I'm gonna go check in with you so far just to make sure everything's okay and you guys are good. Okay, excellent. Some other examples, when students have to add images, this is really a cool thing because a lot of students are very visual learners. So rather than just having to write a response to something, this requires that they find images. This one's a little bit better when students can get out of their house to go take images. I mean, they could go outside and take images right now or pull them from the internet. But if they had to go do an assignment like the one I have below, it'd be difficult for them to go to a retail store in their community to find examples of marketing. But that's just one example of adding images to kind of help to support their viewpoint, to help to support their writing. And images are a great way to help students relate to the topic they're studying. Another one I really like is role play. When you give them a specific role and they have to look at that character or look at a situation from an individual's viewpoint. And this is great when you're teaching like English and you can assign a character from a novel, but you give them a different type of situation. That is not the novel. And they have to approach that situation from the character's viewpoint in the novel. Another example that I give here is impacts of climate change on the environment. And this is one that I use in my sustainability course, where I assign different roles to individuals based on climate change. And one of the individuals has to be the CEO of an automobile company, someone from the EPA, an ecologist, environmentalist, the mayor of a city, the resident of a city, and president of the United States. So I give a bunch of different roles, and I give them a scenario on climate change, and they all have to give their viewpoint based upon that scenario. I get really great discussion on this role play example in my class, and students seem to love it. And just in the reviews of the class, they always tell me that's one of their favorite discussion boards. is the role play. Okay. Similar to the role play is a case study or simulation, and case studies offer students like the opportunity to really apply what they've learned from a given situation or given content. So they apply that content to a real world situation, and it could be anything. And the really great thing about case studies are there are thousands of them on the internet. So for your specific discipline, you probably wouldn't even need to come up with something. You could probably go online and find something that's really good there already, and use that as your case study for your discussion board. The next is controversial topic. Students love these, and I always throw one in, at least one every semester in one of my courses. And students love this too, because a lot of times they have to take on a viewpoint, and they have to do research on the controversial topic and be able to support their viewpoint with research and information. And they just seem to really get into it and be super engaged whenever there's some type of controversial topic. And one thing that I do need to bring to your attention, when you have a controversial topic in your discussion board, you need to set some ground rules to make sure that people are being respectful. I mean, you should be setting some ground rules probably in every discussion board, but it's important, especially in this kind where students might feel very strongly about a topic. And if another student disagrees, you can see where there might be some, there could be a possibility that there could be some arguing or something within the course, or be heavy disagreement. So you need to learn to agree to disagree sometimes, and also set some ground rules like netiquette rules, which are just etiquette rules for the discussion board. And I'll share those with you too. I love this one too. Like if you're in a class where students are writing papers, or they have like a midterm paper or a research paper, this is a great way for them to post online, post their draft paper, and have peers review that paper so that they can get some feedback before they submit. And this has been, I recommended this to a couple English teachers earlier this year, and they've done this, and they said that they've gotten, their students have gotten some great feedback from each other on how to improve their papers. And it makes the teacher's life a little bit easier because they've gotten some feedback before the teacher actually provides feedback. Showcasing final projects. This is cool because a lot of times students will work really hard on a project, and the only person that will ever see it is their teacher. And that's kind of a missed opportunity. So when students do a piece of artwork, or they write a paper, or they do a cool project or presentation, this gallery walk allows them to share their work with others and get feedback, and maybe some kudos from their classmates on the work that they've done. So I love this gallery walk or final project with reflection. It's a great way for students to kind of think about the project and the time that they put into it, but it's also a great way for their classmates to see their work. I'm almost done with this page. Polling is a great way to kind of get students engaged, and you can use the polling feature in Schoology, and that's under the updates feature. And polling kind of just draws people in. You might just throw a question out there where students can, they can do a poll, they can share their data with the other students in the class, and share the results, and create charts and graphs, and summarize the results in maybe an article or an infographic that they share on the discussion board, and then they would have their peers respond to those. That's a really cool way to do polling and to share the results in a discussion board format. And then finally, the muddiest point. This isn't something that you would do every week for a discussion board, but you would check in maybe like 2 or 3 times during the semester with the muddiest point. And this is a great way to kind of get feedback from your students on things that they're still maybe unclear about in the course, so that you can maybe do a little bit of remediation with them, and do some review either before testing or before the final exam at the end. And that's more for teacher insights, but it also does help other students. When you do it in the discussion board, it may generate the aha moment, like, oh yeah, that's right, I forgot how to do that too. So putting that in the discussion board is kind of a cool way to do some review, and also gives the teacher some insights on what may need a little more remediation in the class. Okay, so I'm going to check back in with you. I know that was a lot. Did you guys all check out on me? Are there any questions? Cool. Okay, so those are just some strategies that you can use. And I'm just going to go to the next section. This is the way I typically set up my discussion boards. I will have at the top, I'll have a little bit of an explanation about the discussion. And then I try to break it down into pieces for them, because if you put it all in one area, a lot of times they'll forget to do part of it. So what I do is I give them an overview of the discussion. Then I talk about their initial post, and I give them specific parameters for this post, because if I don't get very good responses. So what I try to do is generate some ideas in their head by giving them some questions to answer. So the initial post is that post that they do that's based upon your prompt, okay? And you might, in this pre-section, you might have them review an article, you might have them view a video link before they even do an initial post. You can set it up however you want. A lot of times teachers will have students read an article and then answer a prompt based upon that article up here. Okay, so when you break it down like this, and you don't need to do it like this, I just like graphics in there, but I do a breakdown of the initial post, what I want them to put in that initial post. And then this is where the magic occurs in a discussion board. It's in that peer response where they start interacting with each other, start sharing their ideas or sharing their projects. And that's where you want to give them specific information, because if you don't tell them what you want them to respond to their peer about, they'll just say, I agree, and that'll be all you see in the response. So what I recommend is give them some parameters. It might just be look at your classmate's initial post and tell how yours is different, similar or different, what insights you gained from your peers' post, and how the information they provided changed or challenged your thinking. Okay, so it's always good to kind of break it down, giving them an overview in the top, maybe giving them step one, the initial post. Tell them what the prompt is and what your expectations are for that post. And then give them some expectations for the peer response too. Do they respond to just one peer? Are you requiring more than one peer? So you need to set those parameters and expectations within your description. Now, I use a discussion board rubric. If you're not going to grade it, you don't always need to put a rubric in there, but putting a rubric in kind of gives them an idea of what the expectations are. And I have developed a rubric here, and I know it seems kind of involved, but you can just pick and choose the criteria that you want to use. So maybe you use just 3 criteria here. But if it's a big project that you're putting in the discussion board, I recommend that you use a more comprehensive rubric. And what it does is it not only gives them an idea of how you're going to grade their paper, but it also serves as like a checklist so that they know that they can do like a self-evaluation, and they know that they've covered all the required elements of your discussion board. Okay. So I put a lot of information in this one discussion. It wouldn't be this much normally, but I wanted to give you an idea of what one of my typical discussion boards looks like. And and how you could set it up so that it's really easy for them to follow. And again, if it is for a big grade, I do recommend that you add a rubric to that. Okay, so that's set up. Do you guys have any questions about setting up the discussion board? Make sure. Definitely will tell you how to access that course, okay? All righty, so I'm gonna jump up and go to the next section. We're almost done, I promise it. I won't keep you too long, much longer. Here are some best practices for developing online discussions. And again, I'm not going to go through all of this, but really structuring that online discussion, just like I showed you, is really important, and providing clear expectations. It's always great if you can provide them with a sample of what a good discussion board response looks like. So you don't need to do that every time, but that might be something that you share with them at the beginning before you start assigning discussions. Show them what a really good response looks like. And it should be one that's supported with facts, or supported with citations or something like that, so that they can see what a really good one looks like, and they'll know how to do their own. It's really fun when you create groups in a discussion board activity where certain people will take on one role, others might take on the devil's advocate role. And it's also a great way you can build communication and collaboration in there. So small group activities can be a lot of fun in a discussion board. And one of the things that's really important in a discussion is you need to have a really strong prompt, and you want to make sure that it's thought-provoking, and also that it's open-ended, not something that can be answered with yes or no. And you always want to develop questions that require students to produce responses that are at the higher ends of Bloom's taxonomy, where they're synthesizing, evaluating something. And a great way to do that is to outline that they need to do some research, and it needs to be, they need to cite their sources. And another great way is to use controversial topics, because that seems to really have them dig a little bit deeper and go to sources on the internet to support their viewpoint. Obviously, you want them to be applying the information to real world situations, and a great way to do that is through the simulation. So the best practice here is saying that you should evaluate student discussions and posts. You don't need to evaluate every single one, but like I said, if you are going to make the discussion a lot of points, or it's a major project for them where they're going to be interacting with each other quite a bit, I strongly encourage you to use a rubric, so that they know exactly what the expectations are and how they will be evaluated for that. And this is one of the best reasons to use a discussion board. It's to build an online learning community in your classroom. But it's really important just to set some ground rules, even if it's just in that introductory section, saying when you respond, or when you develop your initial post, and when you respond to your peers, you need to be scholarly, you need to be respectful, polite, and respectful at all times. You need to value others' opinions and viewpoints. Okay, so I think it's important somewhere in there that you just, maybe even if it's one sentence, you say that they need to be respectful of each other in their viewpoints. Okay, jumping into the next section. This is just some best practices for facilitating, and I always do this whenever and I don't have a lot of discussion boards throughout my classes, but when I do, I always participate in them, and I'll show you an example in a second. Once you've set clear expectations for the assignment and online behavior and work quality, you need to be checking in with them. And what you want to do is respond to a couple posts of students in your classroom and let them know that they've done a great job. Like, provide kudos and tell them why. Tell them why. Like, you have a very comprehensive answer here, supported by research. It's great. And maybe you have a student that really didn't do such a great job on on their initial post. So you can provide them with some additional things to think about that they maybe didn't consider when they developed that initial post. And when you do that, other students will see that, and it will help them to develop their initial post and their peer responses. Okay, so it's great that the teacher is actively participating in that online discussion. You don't need to respond to every single student, but I recommend that you respond to at least 2 or 3, because what that does is it gives the other students a heads up of what the expectations are. And it makes you and your students feel like a stronger learning community. Okay, so checking in again. Those are the best practices for not only developing but for facilitating. Any questions there? Okay, we're getting to the meat of it now. So let's jump into how to create a discussion. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and I'm going to add materials. I'm actually going to go into my creating discussions folder, and I'm going to add materials, and I'm going to create a discussion. And maybe, come on hamster, run faster on that wheel. Oh, I hope Schoology isn't down. Okay, there we go. And you can call it anything you want. Let's say I'm going to call it video and article reflection. Okay, so in that first section, remember I talk about the specific what the assignment is about. So introduction. In this discussion board, you will review a video on, quote, how to make stress a friend. After watching the video, please respond to the prompt for your initial post. Then you will respond to one peer's post. All right, so that's the introduction there. And then what I would probably do is step 1, watch the following video. And I would add a link here. So you would add your link to the video. And then step 2, respond to the following prompt. And then I might have a prompt, how so is there positive stress related to something in your current life? Okay, so they have to relate it to something. And then step 3, I would say something to the effect of respond to one peer's post or classmate's post. And then I would give them specific parameters like what was similar, different, oops, what insights did you learn from your classmate? So what you're doing is you're setting this up so that you're giving them specific instructions on what this project is all about. And you might in this section right here on the prompt, I would say support your viewpoint with facts from the video, okay? And what you've done here is you've created a video and article reflection, and you could have done this, you could have assigned it using a Google Doc, or you could have assigned it using a file so that they reflect in there. or you can have them respond directly in the text box, which is what I've done here. Okay, so we're going to create, and you can make it look pretty. You can add visual images, whatever you want to do, and you'll see that this is what the student would see. They click on that, and then they get the introduction here. And I would recommend that you format it so it looks nice. I would bold this, make the introduction larger, then bold the step 1, step 2, and step 3. But this is what it looks like, the discussion board for a student. So let's pretend I was just a student in the class, and I'm gonna say this is my initial post. Supported by facts from the video. Okay, and up in that step 2, you can say that you want 6 to 8 sentences. You can say, you want to set the parameters for what the expectations are for the discussion board. So let's say that I have 6 to 8 sentences here. I'm going to go ahead and post that. And students can also, if they want to add support, like if they have a file on something or they want to add a link to a page, they can do that too. Or if they wanted to create a video or audio recording, they can certainly do that too. But I'm going to go ahead and post this. And this is what the post would look like. And then the classmate would have the opportunity to reply to that post. And you'll see that when you do that, when I click on reply, it's nested underneath that initial post. So this is a classmate's response to an initial post. I'm just putting that in there, okay? So when you do that, you'll see that it's nested underneath the original one, okay? So that's pretty much how to create the discussion within Schoology. I'm gonna check in with you guys to see if you have any questions about that. Everyone good? Okay, I'm assuming you're all good. And then finally, I'm gonna show you how you would grade that, okay? So I'm going to go down to a sample discussion board that I used in one of my discussion board classes. Okay, if you look here, you'll see that it was exactly the same one I posted earlier. Okay, and I'm going to scroll down, and you'll notice, let me see if I can enlarge my screen a little bit. You'll notice that I've got some users here, and they have put some really great comprehensive responses to my questions. And you can see in this example that I responded to them. I said, super comprehensive response, extremely well done. You captured all the salient points for utilizing discussion boards. Okay, and then you'll see that another classmate in this course responded to that, and then I responded to her. I like to show them, and I like to model that it's important for the teacher to be part and active in that discussion board. And then if you scroll down, you can see all of the different participants who added comments to the discussion board. So how do you grade one of these? Well, if you enabled grading it and you wanted to include grading as include this discussion board as part of a grade, what you can do is you go to this pull down menu right here and you highlight a user. Now you'll see that Katrina Lacey had 1 response, Carly had 2, Chris Klein and Teresa, they all had 2 also. So what I can do is, let's say I wanted to grade Carly's. I'm going to click on Carly, and what happens is I need to scroll down, and you'll notice that Carly's have been highlighted here in blue. So what I can do is I can read Carly's response to appear, and I can automatically grade it right here, okay? And I can add additional comments. And then once I've done that, I can click show to student, which I want to do. I want them to see their comments, and then submit, okay? So what I would do is maybe add some points right here for critical thinking. So I just click on that, and it'll take me to the rubric, and I can put in the points there, okay? I'm going to go back in there again. Oops, I went out by accident, sorry. And I'm going to go back there. And again, I'm just going to highlight her name under the, and it'll take me to her initial post too, which I'll scroll down a little bit. to get to our initial poster, which is right here. Okay, and then again, I can go in and I can click on that and provide a grade. If I want to use the rubric right now, I can click on the rubric and put the scores in the rubric too. So that is how you can evaluate your students when they put in their discussion board questions. Okay, so I've kind of gone over the purpose of discussion boards, the benefits, some different strategies for using the discussion board in your classroom, and how to create the discussion itself within Schoology and how you can grade that. So I want to check back in with you just to see if there are any questions, because that pretty much concludes the content that I'm providing in the course. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I can go ahead and put that link in again. You just go to courses and then you go to the right, my courses, and then you could add that, that section code, and that would add you to this course if you want more information. If you're interested in the super detailed course that's 3 hours long, you can get IPIP credit for that too. Just let me know and I'll put you into that course. But I'll give you the basic course here that I've created. And again, I will go ahead and put that code in for you. Maybe. Oops, wrong course, sorry. I almost put you in the wrong one. Okay, here is the access code to the one I created, if you are interested. Alrighty, Netiquette is a great resource, and I have some information that I could share with you, Kate, if you're interested. It's like I have a one-page infographic on Netiquette that I could share with you. So that's it, folks. If you have any questions, you could unmute yourselves or put them in the chat section, but I think that pretty much wraps it up. Okay, great. You guys have a wonderful afternoon, and I will hope to see you in a future webinar. Take care.